Greetings. We're going to do Volume 1 of Northanger Abbey. I'm Professor Milsom, and I hope you're enjoying this book. Again, I urge you strongly to watch the movie. It will really help, and it only takes a couple hours. I'm posting fewer lectures on this so that you have time to actually watch the movie, because it will help you more than my lectures will to understand the plot and the characters, the setting, what's going on. Okay, just to review, Jane Austen is very famous for her satire. And satire, the important thing to keep in mind about it is this in the middle here. It uses laughter as a weapon. It makes fun of people, politics, traditions in order to critique them. It tries to use shame in order to change the powerful. And then Austen also is very famous for her use of irony. Basically, what that means is it's when you say one thing in order to mean the opposite. Like, if it's raining outside and you're like, oh, wow, what a beautiful day. Everyone understands pretty much that you're not saying it's a beautiful day, you're saying the opposite. Since everyone understands that, that's ironic. You can think about it as sarcasm, but sarcasm has a more insulting quality. Another example is like you have a ton of homework to do and you feel really stressed out and you go, oh wow, I really love homework. Again, it's interchangeable in this context with sarcasm, the way we use it now, but it's when you're saying the opposite of what you mean, and everyone knows that. There's 3 types of irony: verbal, situational, and dramatic. The main one we're concerned with Austen is verbal. It's when you say one thing to mean the opposite. And then there's situational, when the opposite of what you expect to happen happens. Dramatic irony is when things are happening in a book or a play and the readers or the viewers know what's going on, but the characters might not. Okay? And what is going on in Northanger Abbey? So it's a book about books. We're reading about reading in this book. It's very meta. It's a satire of gothic romance novels. So we've talked a lot about gothic. We saw the romance, this tradition of chivalry and courtship. There's a lot of violence and protecting of the vulnerable. And this is it was becoming a very popular genre. Genre means category. Of book in Jane Austen's time, and it continues to be. I mean, this is one of our main genres. If you look at entertainment, this is most plots that involve romance, love. And Gothic was very popular. After Walpole, a lot of writers, including Anne Radcliffe, who we're going to talk about today, were writing these huge books. And over here you see Catherine Morland. She's reading a book and she's spooking herself out, right? She's kicked off her little shoes. She's got a little candle. Look at this Gothic mirror over here and these fancy drapes everywhere and just little Gothic windows. Spooking herself out and sort of entertaining herself. So this book is a satire of the Gothic romance novel. And the basic question of the book is reading Gothic literature dangerous? And is reading dangerous? And then the book also exposes a lot of irony. Okay, here's what's ironic. Young girls are often right. People think that older men are, but young girls are often right. But in a patriarchal society, we assume the men are in charge and that they're right about things. But we see here, we're going to find out that, in fact, everyone should have been listening to Catherine all along, ironically. And then this other irony about reading. People who read fluff and chick lit are actually smart readers of People as a result. But people think that girl things are dumb and serious male things are smart. So this is all very ironic. Turns out that maybe reading these cheesy romance novels actually is teaching you a thing or two about danger. Again, some themes. I went over these in the first lecture. There's miscommunication and misunderstanding. We have the dangers and pleasures of reading. There's stupidity and obsessions. We'll see John Thorpe is obsessed with horses and racing and his carriages, and it's often quite dangerous. We have flirting and unwanted advances. So this comes up a lot. Fakeness and genuineness. We see fakeness in the character of Isabella Thorpe. She and Catherine become friends in Bath, England, but we find out she's really quite fake. And her brother John is constantly interested in Catherine because he is under the impression that Catherine is going to inherit Mr. Allen's money. She's not, actually. No one really has confirmed that accurately, but this is a misapprehension. And then we find out Henry Tilney and his sister Eleanor are very genuine. So the Thorpes are kind of the fake, and the Tilneys are the genuine characters. And then there's a lot of stuff about money in here. Who has it? Who's going to inherit it? Does money make you more valuable? We'll find out in the second part of the novel that people thinking Catherine had money is what makes people think she's valuable. She doesn't have money. And she's still valuable. So this is a really important thing. Remember, she comes from a family of like 1 million children. And they're comfortable, but you got to divide up the money among all those kids. You're not left with very much. Here's a little bootleg chart I made on the board when I taught this last year. The characters. We've got Catherine Morland. She's obsessed with novels. Remember, we have obsessions. She's also very naive. James Morland is her brother. He goes to Oxford, which is the big university in England. Mr. and Mrs. Allen, these are the rich neighbors, the Morlands' neighbors, who take Catherine to Bath. Mrs. Allen is obsessed with clothing, and you'll hear her talk about muslins a lot. This is going to be on a quiz. Muslin is a type of fabric, actually came from India. There was a big empire being built in India by England at the time, and they would send fabrics from India, these beautiful muslin fabrics. So she talks about that a lot. And Mr. Allen is gouty. He has gout, which is like a painful condition in your legs, or it can be all over your body, which is why they're going to Bath in the first place, because Bath, you can soak in the nasty baths and drink the nasty bath water. And supposedly it's healthy. They're very rich, and they don't have children, so they're bringing Catherine with them. And this is why everyone thinks Catherine is rich, because she's with them, and everyone assumes she's going to inherit their money, which is actually, people just make that up. We meet Isabella Thorpe at the pump room. The pump room is where everyone goes to hang. It's like the club. They go there all day, hang out, they pump water, the nasty bath water, and drink it, and they dance, they meet each other, they flirt. It's where you go to be seen, where you look at everyone else's clothes. Isabella Thorpe and Catherine both like reading novels, but Isabella, will find out, is very self-obsessed. She loves flirting. And Mrs. Allen is actually friends with the Thorpe's mother. John Thorpe is Isabella's brother. He's obsessed with horses and carriages. He also goes to Oxford. Turns out, coincidence, he's good friends with James, Catherine's brother. And Isabella has a bit of a thing. Let's put this a little hard. Isabella has a little bit of a thing for James. At the pump room, Catherine also meets Henry Tilney. He is a clergyman. A lot of men would become clergymen when they were second sons. They're not going to inherit the money that goes to the first son, but the second son has to work. He's a clergyman, means he's a preacher and has an income from working, but he also loves reading novels, which in this book is a good sign. Even though it's associated with women, we found a man who likes to read novels. That's a good man. All right, then he has this lovely sister, Eleanor. It turns out Eleanor is the real deal. She's a good friend, unlike Isabella. So Catherine, who meets Isabella, is suddenly like, oh, I also want to hang out with Eleanor, but Isabella gets kind of jealous. Can't have two friends. And then their father is General Tilney, who we learn later. He is the owner of Northanger Abbey. This is where they all live. They live in Northanger Abbey, which, of course, Catherine, who's obsessed with Gothic romances, assumes is this like ancient castle, sort of like Otranto, and she wants to go visit them because she wants to live in their ancient castle, just like in the books. And then his first son is Captain Frederick Tilney, who is the sexy older brother. He's also, of course, very bad. So he's hot, he's bad. He's the hot, bad older brother. All right, so we're going to go through a few things in Volume 1 just to follow along. Chapter 2, there's their voyage to Bath. It's very un-gothic. We also learn about Mrs. Allen, who likes clothes and is very unattractive, really. She's not meaning physically, meaning she's very vapid. She's all she wants to talk about is clothes. Then in chapter 3, we have Catherine meeting Henry. They flirt. It's very exciting. Chapter 5, this is where Catherine develops her friendship with Isabella Thorpe. They both share this love of reading novels, so this is what they talk about. Later, chapter 7, she's forced to go on forced to talk with Isabella's brother John. He goes on and on about horses, and then talks about how he actually really doesn't like novels. This is a bad sign. Then we have chapter 13. The Thorpes are going to force Catherine to miss her walk with Eleanor Tilney. Catherine made plans to go on a walk with Eleanor, and the Thorpes force Catherine because if Catherine doesn't go, then Isabella is going to be the only woman, and that's not proper. She's going to be the only girl with a big group of boys, and, like, that is just not done. And Catherine gets manipulated into going because Isabella's like, how can you think it's okay to let me have to go on a ride with a bunch of boys by myself? But then they go, and it's a very dangerous ride. John is awful. And as they're on this ride, she passes by the Tilneys, and they see she's in a carriage and ditching them, and they don't have texts or Snapchat or whatever, so she can't be like, guys, I'm so sorry. Like, it's like back when I was a kid when you couldn't text people and you just, like, missed them and they didn't know where you were. It was really annoying. You couldn't clear things up with a text. So this is an example of a scene in literature that would have been fixed easily with a text message. Then we have chapter 14. They make up. Catherine finds out that Henry Tilney likes novels. Such a great scene. Okay, so let's go over here to the book. And, oops. All right. So let's go over here to the book. Let's look at chapter 2. I'm gonna try something new here and type notes because it's much easier than writing on my screen. So here we go. Again, remember, Catherine is obsessed with these novels, and she's constantly comparing her own life to that of a heroine in a novel, and it's always just falling short. Like, her family is too nice to be a proper Gothic family. Her mother is too fertile to be a proper Gothic mother. Her father is just pretty nice, and he's not a monster like Manfred. Anyway, so this is, pay attention to the tone in this scene here. We're on page 5, beginning of chapter 2. When the hour of departure drew near, remember, they're going to Bath. So she's going with the Allens to Bath, which is like they're going to the Jersey Shore. They're going on vacation. And this is a big deal because you don't go places very often back then. So when the hour of departure drew near, the maternal anxiety of Mrs. Morland would naturally be supposed to be most severe. A thousand alarming presentiments of evil to her beloved Catherine from this terrific separation must oppress her heart with sadness and drown her in tears for the last day or two of their being together. And advice of the most important and applicable nature must, of course, flow from her wise lips in their parting conference in her closet. Closet is like a little, den where you do your makeup. But so this is like all things a proper heroine would experience with her mother upon departure. But this is not happening. Cautions against the the cautions against the violence of such noblemen and baronets as delight in forcing young ladies away. So, like, her mom should be warning her about men right now. Like, beware of noblemen who delight in forcing young ladies away to a remote farmhouse. Thinking of sexual violence here, right? Must, at such a moment, relieve the fullness of her heart. Who would not think so? So this is when, like, her mother should be sad. Her mother should be warning her about rapey baronets who will force you to a farmhouse. I mean, that's actually a pretty racy line for Austen here. Who would not think so? But Mrs. Morland knew so little of lords and baronets that she entertained no notion of their general mischievousness. So her mother's, like, kind of ignorant, right? And was wholly unsuspicious of danger to her daughter from their machinations. Her cautions were confined to the following points. I beg, Catherine, you will always wrap yourself up very warm about the throat. Okay, so she's like, stay warm when you come from the rooms at night. And I wish you would try to keep some of the money you spend. I will give you this book, some account of the money you spend. I will give you this book on purpose. So, okay, her mom's like, stay warm and keep track of the money you spent. She's obviously not that concerned. And then we'll skip to the next page. Under these unpromising auspices, so, like, this is not promising for our heroine, right? The parting took place and the journey began. It was performed with suitable quietness and uneventful safety. Uneventful safety. Like, this is an example of tone here, right? That should be a good thing. It should be good that you're safe, but it's not good for Catherine because Catherine wants to have an adventure. She wants to be a heroine in a novel. Neither robbers nor tempests befriended them. It's a weird, funny verb, right? Befriended. Like, she wants to be befriended by robbers and storms along the way, because that would make for a good Gothic novel. Nor one unlucky overturn to introduce them to the hero. Like, she wants to be saved in her overturned carriage. Nothing more alarming occurred than a fear on Mrs. Allen's side of having left one of her clogs behind her at an inn. Okay, remember, Mrs. Allen is obsessed with clothes, and that fortunately proved to be groundless. So the only conflict they had was that Mrs. Allen thought she might have left one of her shoes at the hotel along the way. That's funny. They arrived at Bath. Catherine was all eager delight. Her eyes were here, there, everywhere, as they approached its fine, striking environs, and afterwards drove through those streets which conducted them to the hotel. She was come to be happy, and she felt happy already. Oh, that's so nice. They were soon settled in comfortable lodgings in Pulteney Street. It is now expedient to give some description of Mrs. Allen, that the reader may be able to judge in what manner her actions will hereafter tend to promote the general distress of the work. So, like, Mrs. Allen, I'm going to write this here. Mrs. Allen promotes the distress, the general distress of the book, causes its conflict, okay? And how she will probably contribute to reduce poor Catherine to all the desperate wretchedness of which a last volume is capable. So, actually, although we haven't started out very gothically here, we're going to see that Mrs. Allen is going to cause a lot of problems and turn Catherine maybe even into a good Gothic heroine. Whether by her imprudence, vulgarity, or jealousy, whether by intercepting her letters, ruining her character, or turning her out of doors. So maybe Mrs. Allen will do a good job making Catherine into the hero she wants to be. Mrs. Allen was one of that numerous class of females whose society can raise no emotion than surprise at there being any men in the world who could like them well enough to marry them. In case you didn't know it, that's called 1803 shade. So Mrs. Allen is the type of woman who, like, being around her can raise no other feeling in you than surprise that there's any man in the world who would like them enough to marry them. That's pretty shady. She had neither beauty, genius, accomplishment, nor manner. Okay, she's not pretty, smart, good at anything, well-mannered. The air of a gentleman, a great deal of quiet, inactive good temper, and a trifling turn of mind, she's not that smart, were all that could account for her being the choice of a sensible, intelligent man like Mr. Allen. So Mr. Allen's a good guy. In one respect, She was admirably fitted to introduce a young lady into public, being as fond of going everywhere and seeing everything herself as any young lady could be. Dress was her passion. She had a most harmless delight in being fine, and our heroine's entree into life could not take place till after 3 or 4 days had been spent in learning what was mostly worn. Okay, so like they can't go out once they get to Bath. They can't go out until they spend 3 or 4 days shopping. That's what's going on. They're shopping for a few days. Catherine, too, made some purchases herself, and when all these matters were arranged, the most important evening came, which was to usher her to the upper rooms. The upper rooms, and there's the lower rooms also. These are the clubs, right? This is where you go pump your water, your nasty water, and dance. Her hair was cut and dressed by the best hand. Her clothes were put on with care, and both Mr. Allen and her maid declared she looked quite as she should do. It's not that nice. With such encouragement, Catherine hoped at least to pass uncensured. That means like uncriticized through the crowd. Catherine doesn't have high expectations. As for admiration, it was always welcome when it came, but she did not depend on it. Mrs. Allen was so long in dressing, she spent so much time getting dressed, that they did not enter the ballroom till late. The season was full. It means like it's high season, like everyone is there for the season. The room crowded, and the two ladies squeezed in as well as they could. As for Mr. Allen, he repaired directly to the card room and left them to enjoy a mob by themselves. So Mr. Allen's like, I'm going to go play cards. This is an important line here, with more care for the safety of her new gown than for the comfort of her protege. So Mrs. Allen cares more about her dress than for Catherine's safety. Mrs. Allen made her way through the throng of men, that's a crowd of men by the door, as swiftly as the necessary caution would allow. All right, so it's too crowded. They don't really know anybody. This is welcome to Bath. The club is crowded. You got to wear the right things. Mrs. Allen is pretty. It's hard to like Mrs. Allen. Okay, so we're gonna flash forward here to chapter 3, page 10. Every morning now brought its regular duties. Shops were to be visited, some new part of town to be looked at, and the pump room to be attended. This is basically life. You can see why these books, by the way, are still popular. I mean, this is very relatable on a level, like shopping, going out, looking at people, getting dressed up. The pump room to be attended, where they paraded up and down for an hour looking at everybody and speaking to no one. So they don't really know anyone yet. They're going to the club. They're walking around. The wish of a numerous acquaintance in Bath was still uppermost with Miss Allen. So she really wants to make friends. And she repeated it. She keeps talking about how she wants friends after every fresh proof, which every morning brought of her knowing nobody at all. So every time she's reminded how she doesn't know anyone, she repeats, I really want to meet friends. They made their appearance in the lower rooms, and here fortune was more favorable to our heroine. Remember, every time she calls her our heroine, she's kind of making fun of her because she's not much of a heroine. The master of ceremonies, so this is the guy who MCs the party. That's what MC stands for, master of ceremonies. He's a very famous guy, actually. It's a historical figure. The MC saw her and was like, oh, she needs to meet someone. So he introduced her to a very gentleman-like young man as a partner. His name was Tilney. Hey! He seemed to be about 4 or 5 and 20, was rather tall, had a pleasing countenance, that means face, and a very intelligent and lively eye, and, if not quite handsome, was very near it. Okay, that's good. He's almost handsome. His address was good, and Catherine felt herself in high luck. There was little leisure for speaking while they danced, but when they were seated at tea, she found him as agreeable as she had already given him credit for being. All right, so that just means, she had already decided he was agreeable and nice. She gave him credit for it, and he actually turned out to be nice. That's kind of shady. He talked with fluency and spirit, and there was an archness and pleasantry in his manner which was interested, though was hardly understood by her. So she kind of doesn't understand him. After chatting some time on matters as naturally arose from the objects around them, he suddenly addressed her with, I have hitherto been very remiss, madam, in the proper attentions of a partner here. I have not yet asked, how long have you been in Bath, whether you have ever been here before, whether you have been in the upper rooms, the theater, and the concert. Again, this is like a meta conversation. This is like, oh, I haven't asked you the normal questions, like, how long have you been in Bath? Where have you gone? Have you gone to the theater? You know, he's like, I've been very negligent, but are you now at leisure to satisfy me in these particulars? If you are, I will begin directly. You need not, she's like, all right, you need not trouble yourself. This is kind of flirting. He's like, oh, I forgot to ask you all the normal questions. No trouble, I assure you, madam. Then forming his features into a set smile and affectedly softening his voice. He's like being fake on purpose as a joke, right? He added with a simpering air, have you been long in Bath, madam? This is meta conversation, right? It's a conversation about conversation. About a week, sir, replied Catherine, trying not to laugh. She gets the joke. Really? With affected astonishment. That means fake astonishment. Why should you be so surprised, sir? Why, indeed, said he in his natural tone, but some emotion must appear to be raised by your reply. He's like, but I'm supposed to show emotion, okay, when you respond? And surprise is easily assumed and not less reasonable than any other. Okay, let us go on. Were you never here before, madam? Never, sir. Indeed! Have you yet honored the upper rooms? Yes, sir, I was there last Monday. Have you been to the theater? Yes, sir, I was at the play on Tuesday. To the concert? Yes, sir, on Wednesday. And are you altogether pleased with Bath? Yeah, I like it. Now I must give one smirk, then we may be rational again. He's like, now our fake conversation has ended. You know, he's goofy, and they're flirting. Catherine turned her head away, not knowing whether she might venture to laugh. I see what you must think of me, he said gravely. I shall make but a poor figure in your journal tomorrow. My journal? He's like, yes, I know exactly what you will say. Friday, went to the lower rooms, wore my sprigged muslin robe with blue trimmings, plain black shoes, appeared to much advantage, but was strangely harassed. So here he is, like, writing out what he thinks she's going to write in her journal. He's, again, flirting. He's calling himself a queer half-witted man who would make me dance with him and distress me by his nonsense. Indeed, I shall say no such thing. Shall I tell you what you ought to say, if you pleased? And this is what he thinks she should say in her journal, that he's pretending he knows she has. I danced with a very agreeable young man introduced by Mr. King. Mr. King is an actual historical figure, was the MC at the pump room. Had a great deal of conversation with him, seems most extraordinary genius. Look, he's calling himself a genius. Hope that I may know more of him. That, madam, is what I wish you to say. But perhaps I keep no journal. Perhaps you are not sitting in this room. Look, they're being flirty. And I am not sitting by you. These are points in which a doubt is equally possible. Not keep a journal. How are your absent cousins to understand the tenor of your life in Bath without one? He's like, of course you keep a journal, etc., etc. I am, page 12, I am not so ignorant of young ladies' ways as you wish to believe me. It is this delightful habit of journalizing which largely contributes to form the easy style of writing for which ladies are so generally celebrated. Everybody allows the talent of writing agreeable letters is peculiarly female. Now, in this book, whenever anyone is talking about writing or reading, pay attention, because remember, this is a book about writing and reading. So he's like, nice, agreeable letter writing is very female. Nature may have done something, but I am sure it must be essentially assisted by the practice of keeping a journal. And then they talk about who's better at writing, men or women. And then Mrs. Allen interrupts. My dear Catherine, said she, do take this pin out of my sleeve. I'm afraid it has torn a hole already. I shall be quite sorry, for if it has, this is a favorite gown, though it cost but 9 shillings a yard. So she's upset because the worst thing has happened. She got a hole in her dress. That is exactly what I should have guessed it, madam. Mr. Tilney, looking at the muslin. He's talking about the cost. She's like telling everyone the cost of her muslin fabric here, right? And then she looks at him. Do you understand muslins, sir? Oh, particularly well. I always buy my own cravats, that's ties, and I'm allowed to be an excellent judge, and my sister has often trusted me the choice of a gown. Now, actually, he's not lying here. He's got this sister. This is a good window into Mr. Tilney here, because he's actually like he's like one of those guys who's like around women. He knows things that women do and are expected to do, and he like participates, you know. My sister has often trusted me in the choice of a gown. Like, his sister lets him pick out dresses sometimes. He has good taste. I bought one for her the other day, and it was pronounced to be a prodigious bargain by every lady who saw it. He's like, I even know a good deal. I gave but 5 shillings a yard for it, and a true Indian muslin. Okay, this is like Mrs. Allen's favorite topic, right? She was quite struck by his genius. Men commonly take so little notice of these things. Yep, her husband is very... Okay, so now we've met Mr. Tilney. This is a great opportunity then to switch. I want to go to page 18. So page 18 is in chapter 5. This is... now the Thorpes are... So now Catherine is becoming friends with Isabella Thorpe, and we have Mrs. Allen, who's very happy because she's friends with... What's the matter? Oh, my dog's coming over here. Mrs. Allen has found a friend, so now she's happy. Middle of page 18. Mrs. Allen was now quite happy, quite satisfied with Bath. She had found some acquaintance, had been so lucky too as to find in them a family of a most worthy old friend, and as the completion of good fortune had found these friends by no means so expensively dressed as herself. So, like, the greatest thing for Mrs. Allen about the Thorpes is that they're not quite as well dressed as she is. Like, her dresses are more expensive. Okay. Her daily expressions were no longer, "Oh, I wish we had some acquaintance in Bath." They were changed into, "How glad I am we have met with Mrs. Thorpe." And she was eager in promoting the intercourse of the two families. That means, like, interactions, as her young charge and Isabella themselves could be. Never satisfied with the day unless she spent the chief of it by the side of Mrs. Thorpe, in what they called conversation. That's some shade there. In what they called conversation. Oh, that's not... Well, but... in which there was scarcely ever any exchange of opinion, not often any resemblance of subject. Okay, so they're talking, they don't really exchange any opinions, they don't really have any topics they cover. For Mrs. Thorpe talked chiefly of her children, and Mrs. Allen of her gowns. So, yep, that sounds about right. The progress of the friendship between Catherine and Isabella was quick, as its beginning had been warm, and they passed so rapidly through every gradation of increasing tenderness that there was shortly no fresh proof of it to be given to their friends or themselves. They called each other by their Christian name, that means their first name. You know, back then, you would call each other Miss Thorpe or Miss Moreland, but if you call someone by their first name, that means you're very good friends. And they were always arm in arm when they walked, pinned up each other's train for the dance, and were not to be divided in a set. And if a rainy morning deprived them of other enjoyments, they were still resolute in meeting in defiance of wet and dirt, and shut themselves up to read novels together. Now remember, this book, whenever there's a mention of books or reading or writing, pay attention. So when it rains out, nice gothic weather, right? They read novels together. Yes, novels. For I will not adopt that ungenerous and impolitic custom. Okay, by the way, this is a really important passage, because this is like the author, who doesn't normally like drop in. We don't normally get an I in the narration, right? The author herself is talking about novel writers here. This is a very famous passage. I will not adopt that ungenerous and impolitic custom so common with novel writers of degrading by their contemptuous censure the very performances to the number of which they are themselves adding. So she's like, novel writers like to degrade the very thing that they do. Like, novel writers like to talk smack about novel writing because it's not considered high art, right? She's like, I will not do that. I will not join with... this is what they do. They join with their greatest enemies in bestowing the harshest epithets, this like titles, on such works, and scarcely ever permitting them to be read by their own heroine. Like, she's like, novel writers never let their characters read books. She's like, this is ridiculous. You're a novel writer. Make your characters read books. Who, if she accidentally take up a novel, is sure to turn it over its insipid, boring pages with disgust. Alas, if the heroine of one novel is not to be patronized by the heroine of another, from whom she can expect protection and regard, I cannot approve of it. So she's saying here, like, in a novel, characters should read novels, and, like, you shouldn't pretend like novels are bad, because you're writing one. Okay? This is a really important passage, because she's like, we novelists need to stick together and support each other. Let us leave it to the reviewers to abuse such effusions of fancy at their leisure, and over every new novel to talk in threadbare strains of the trash with which the press now groans. This is her to other novelists. Let us not desert one another. We are an injured body. See, people are mean about novelists, right? Although our productions have afforded more extensive and unaffected pleasures than those of any other literary corporation in the world. She's like, our books give people more pleasure than any other kind of book. No species of composition has been so much decried. She's like, any other book genre has, like, not been abused as much as the novel, and this is ridiculous, and we need to stick together. Okay, so this is a really good passage because the author is speaking to us, defending novel writing. It's cool. Thank you, Miss Austen. I appreciate that because I love novels. All right, speaking of novels, let's skip ahead. We're going to go to page 27. Oops, not that far ahead. Where is it? Oh, hold on, I have to find it. Okay, we're in chapter 7. This is the part where Catherine is forced to have a conversation with James Thorpe. This is Isabella Thorpe's brother. Also, James Morland is there. That's Catherine's brother. Remember, he goes to college with James. Okay, James and John. I'm just going to mix up their names constantly. Sorry about that. All right. So, all right, here we are. John Thorpe, bottom of page 26. John Thorpe kept, of course, with Catherine. So they're talking together. And after a few minutes' silence, renewed the conversation about his gig. His gig is like his carriage. It's a sporty carriage. Think about it as like his sports car. This is like the kind of person who's like, he's out on a date with a girl, getting to know her, and all he does is talk about his sports car, and she has shown no indication that she has any interest in cars. So that's basically what this is. He keeps going. You will find, however, Miss Morland, it would be reckoned a cheap thing by some people, for I might have sold it for 10 guineas more the next day. Jackson of Oriel bid me 60 at once. Morland was with me at the time. Yes, said Morland. This is Catherine's brother, who overheard this, but you forget that your horse was included. My horse! Oh, damn it. When there's like a long dash like that, that's because they're leaving out letters, because damn is naughty. My horse, oh damn it, I would not sell my horse for 100. Are you fond of an open carriage, Miss Morland? Oh, he's like, do you like sports cars, Catherine? Yeah, very. I have hardly had an opportunity of being in one, but I am particularly fond of it. She's like, yeah, I love them. I've never been in one, but I am glad of it. I will drive you out in mine every day. Oh, thank you, said Catherine in some distress from a doubt of the propriety of accepting such an offer. She's like, I don't know if I should be accepting, like, rides with a guy I don't know that well. I will drive you up Lansdowne Hill tomorrow. Thank you, but will not your horse want rest? It's very funny here. Catherine's saying, she's like looking out for his horse. Doesn't your horse want some rest? Rest? He has only come 23 miles today. All nonsense. Nothing ruins a horse so much as rest. So, on and on. There's like paragraph after paragraph about running horses, etc., etc. And then I'm going to scroll down here to the page 27. She goes in the middle of this paragraph. After listening and agreeing as long as she could with all the civility and deference of the youthful female mind, fearful of hazarding an opinion of its own in opposition to that of a self-assured man, especially where the beauty of her own sex is concerned, ventured at length to vary the subject by a question. So she's like, I'm going to try changing the subject, which had long been uppermost in her thoughts. It was, have you read Udolpho, Mr. Thorpe? Now, Udolpho is a Gothic novel, very popular at the time, by Anne Radcliffe. And, of course, remember, in this book, whenever anyone mentions books or reading or writing, pay attention. Udolpho? Oh, Lord, not I. I never read novels. I have something else to do. Well, isn't that nice? He has something else to do. Look at her reaction. Catherine, humbled and ashamed, was going to apologize for her question, but he prevented her by saying, novels are all so full of nonsense and stuff. There has not been a tolerably decent one come out since Tom Jones, except The Monk. That's a reference to The Monk by Sinclair Lewis. I read that the other day, but as for all the others, they are the stupidest things in creation. I think you must like Udolpho if you were to read it. It is so very interesting. And he's like, not I. And so, okay, this is an example of what Austin was talking about, that other page, in novels when novels are getting dissed. And of course, this is all a way of making this character, Thorpe, seem really bad. He's a jerk, obviously. Now, contrast him here with Henry Tilney. So go ahead and flip over to chapter 14. In contrast, we've got Henry Tilney. Remember, she met him in the pump room, and they were flirting, and he was joking about how she was going to write about him in her journal. And remember, we learned that he actually is like a really nice brother. He knows how to pick out dresses. All right, so we've skipped ahead. Remember, this is after there was that big conflict where she was supposed to go on a walk with Eleanor, Henry's sister, and then the Thorpes forced her to go on a carriage ride. Okay, the next morning was fair, and Catherine almost expected another attack from the assembled party. With Mr. Allen to support her, she felt no dread of the event, but she would gladly be spared a contest where victory itself was painful, and was heartily rejoiced, therefore, at neither seeing nor hearing anything of them, referring to the Thorpes. The Tilneys, this is Henry and Eleanor. Remember, the Tilneys are good, the Thorpes are bad. The Tilneys called for her at the appointed time, and no new difficulty arising, no sudden recollection, no unexpected summons, no impertinent intrusion to disconcert their measures, my heroine was most unnaturally able to fulfill her engagement. Remember, heroines are supposed to be thwarted in their books, right? Though it was made with the hero himself. They determined on walking round Beecham Cliff, that noble hill whose beautiful verdure and hanging coppice render it so striking an object from almost every opening in Bath. So they're going to go look at natural beauty. I never look at it, said Catherine, as they walked alongside the river, without thinking of the south of France. Okay. So you love the south of France? So you've been abroad then? Said Henry, a little surprised. Oh, no, I only mean what I've read about. It always puts me in the mind of the country that Emily and her father traveled through in The Mysteries of Udolpho. But you never read novels, I dare say. So she's like, oh, this makes me think of France. And he's like, you've been to France? And she's like, no, I read about it in a book. But now she's like all shy, because remember what happened with Thorpe. She's like, but you never read novels, I dare say. Why not? Because they are not clever enough for you. Gentlemen read better books. This is like, she's preparing herself to hear that books are bad. And this is Henry's response. The person, be it gentleman or lady, who has not pleasure in a good novel must be intolerably stupid. He's like, if someone can't enjoy a novel, they must be stupid. I have read all of Mrs. Radcliffe's works, and most of them with great pleasure. The Mysteries of Udolpho, when I had once begun it, I could not lay down again. I remember finishing it in 2 days, my hair standing on end the whole time. Okay, look at the difference between Henry's response to the Mysteries of Udolpho versus Thorpe's, and you understand Henry is the attractive hero because he likes books. And then Eleanor, perfect best friend, right? Best friend material, Yes, added Miss Tilney, and I remember that you undertook to read it out aloud to me, and that when I was called away for only 5 minutes to answer a note, instead of waiting for me, you took the volume into the Hermitage Walk, and I was obliged to stay till you had finished it. Thank you, Eleanor. A most honorable testimony. You see, Miss Moreland, the injustice of your suspicions. Okay, so, obviously he's a good guy because he likes books. I am very glad to hear it, indeed, and now I shall never be ashamed of liking Udolpho myself. But I really thought before the young men despised novels amazingly. She's like, but I thought men didn't like books. It is amazingly, and may well suggest amazement if they do, for they read nearly as many as women. He's like, yeah, they read just as many novels as you do. I myself have read hundreds and hundreds. Do not imagine that you can cope with me in a knowledge of Julia's and Louisa's. He's like, I know all the characters. So I'm going to conclude here by, again, reminding you, pay attention to the ways in which the characters talk about books and reading, because that's a way you can sort of evaluate them. Like, are they good or bad? And also remember, this is a book about books. It is a book about whether or not it's dangerous to read. Is it dangerous to read Gothic romance novels? You'll see coming up that Catherine's love of Gothic might lead her astray, but in the end, does it? And this is something this is a little bit of a controversy in this book. People often disagree on this point. So I hope you enjoyed this first volume of the book. The next volume, we're going to get to go to Northanger Abbey and leave Bath. But again, watch the movie. You'll get a good sense of what's going on. And email me if you have any questions.